Create more accidents, rule number 6. There's a great book you should all read, which is ancient. I think it was published in 1962, The Structure of Scientific Revolutions by Thomas Kahn. And he talks about innovation coming from scientific innovation coming from 3 areas. And I think this is still true and it applies to innovation in a very broad sense. The first area is people under 25, young people. You know, they're not invested in the current structures and reward systems. They don't necessarily know the rules. They don't really care. The cost of failure is less. The second thing is cross-fertilization between disciplines, getting engineers to talk to architects or architects to talk to biologists, etc. And the other sort of area was just sheer accidents, of which, I mean, what I've ended up doing has been a series of accidents. First of all, you've got to actually recognize when an accident happens and do something about it. And also, you really want to try and get a situation where more accidents happen. So, and this is back to how you physically build workspaces. You want people to constantly be bumping into each other by accident, in the kitchen, over the kettle, in the staircases. You want to talk to as many people as possible, particularly from outside your own sort of particular expertise, and so on and so forth. And accidental insights and invention is, well, it's the history of invention pretty much. The list is a very, very long one if you look at ideas created by accident. The 7th idea is sort of related to this, which is, failure, and this was touched on earlier on, is an extremely important component of innovation and invention. And I do like this idea of Thomas Edison I have not failed, I have just found 10,000 ways that don't work. James Dyson, he had 5,127 prototypes for his vacuum cleaner before he got one he was happy with. Most innovation will end up with failure. Get over it. It's like science and experiments. Most don't work. That's the whole point. That's the whole process, really. And I think that the trick really is to just keep trying, record your experiments and failures. I mean, have a failure ideas bank in a sense. Try and measure the failure, even try and reward the failure. I mean, it sounds insane, but I think we need people to be failing more often. They should be rewarded for failing, although obviously you don't want them doing the same thing twice. You don't want to be sort of rewarded for failing in the same way twice. That's just plain stupid. So yeah, I think failure, and this is culturally very, very difficult to get across to people. It's a bit like saying employees should have 10% of their working day to fiddle around and look out the window or go for a walk on the beach. It's quite difficult to get a lot of very large corporates to embrace that, but they're absolutely going to have to if they're going to get anywhere. The 8th rule is seeking innocence. Experts are great. Experts are great for evolutionary innovation, incremental innovation. They know what they're talking about. There is a slight problem, though, with experts. I mean, the term groupthink was coined to describe expert behavior. No expert really wants to stick their neck out. Peer pressure is extraordinarily strong. So what seems to work really well in my experience is mixing these experts with sort of innocence. People that are, they're not stupid, they're not naive, but they are innocent, particularly around what you're trying to achieve, what you're trying to do. And they're usually external to the organization. Now, they might be academics, they might be smart, extreme users, customers, and so on. They could even be kids. Kids are extremely good thinkers. They have a sort of naivety that's rather wonderful. They're rather unconstrained. So you need to sort of tap into that pretty strongly. The 9th rule for revolutionaries is less time and money, which is certainly one for 2013, the less money bit. There's a great quote by Ernest Rutherford, who was a sort of British experimenter, chemist, the father of nuclear physics, who said, "We've got no money, gentlemen. We'll have to think." And this is back to the adversity point. So don't take the fact that there's no money out there directly as a problem. That's actually an opportunity, bearing in mind there is actually still money out there. It will force you to focus. It'll basically force you to think more. And you can even create a crisis if things are going badly, but there is no crisis. I mean, the chairman of Unilever years ago used to have that as a deliberate policy. If a project was just not happening, it was falling behind time, taking too much money, he would deliberately create a crisis by slashing the budget and bring the delivery time forward. And that can actually work. And you kind of see this with entrepreneurs classically in California, where there isn't always a sense of crisis because they've got no flipping money. It's in the back of a garage, there's two of them eating cold pizza and drinking Diet Pepsi with no money. And if they don't sort this out quite quickly and get something into market, they're not going to pay the mortgage. Whereas big companies, there's always a wiggle room. So that can be used to your advantage. The other thing that sort of links into this a bit, I think, is you need an enemy. Now, the enemy is, if it's IBM, it's Apple and vice versa, or whatever. But now that doesn't have to be a company, but company enemies can work quite well. It can be a problem. It could be a social issue, but having an enemy, and this sort of taps back into the religious zeal thing, works very well. If you are a very large organization, or you are an organization where the culture is risk averse, don't feel bad about kicking a couple of people out and sticking them in a really cheap office and tell them to get on with it. The whole skunk works idea. I mean, there was a fabulous book written called Insights of Genius, which is pretty much the history of skunk works. And that is a great way of sidestepping the culture, and it's worth sort of looking at that if you haven't thought of that before. And the other thing is, if people are coming up with great ideas, I personally think they should get more than a salary. I think they should be financially linked into the success of that product or service, even to the point of actually owning shares in some way, or maybe they start running the spin-off as a business, something like that. So actually tie them in. And the 10th rule is really to think further ahead. There are types of innovation out there which is about stuff that can be done tomorrow. I came down on Great Western yesterday and was fairly upset because there's no Wi-Fi on the train, which I think is sort of fairly Stone Age, and they can sort that tomorrow, and they should. But most radical innovation isn't going to come to fruition for years. So in a sense, you're trying to come up with something for a market that doesn't actually exist yet. So you are literally innovating for tomorrow. So you have got to think about, if you have something that's going to come out in 2020, well, what's 2020 going to be like? What's the context that product or service is going to be launched into? Otherwise, you're going to be, you'll be launching in 2020 with a 2012 mindset, and that's probably not going to work. So you really have to think ahead and work out where things are going to be placed. And I think scenario planning is a very useful tool for that. It's usually used for corporate strategy, but scenario planning works beautifully for innovation as well. The other thing I think you can do that is cheap as chips is just walk around with your eyes and ears open and see what everyone else is doing. There's a great quote from, I've completely forgotten his name, but the future is already here. It's just unevenly distributed. And I think that's true. If you want to look at what people in South Wales will be doing with mobile phones in 2020, well, to some extent I can tell you because I can just point you in the direction of Africa or Seoul or Tokyo. It's already happening. So there are places you can go, people you can talk to that are already living in the future in some way. And again, you can go back and steal some of that stuff. Just walk around, scan the horizon. I mean, this can be sitting at a computer doing desk research, or it can be going to Tokyo and having a look around. What is going on out there that I can borrow and adapt and improve for my business? And the other one, right at the end of this, is conventional wisdom says the customer is at the center of everything. You have to listen to your customer. Well, yeah, that's true up to a point, although customers can be real dumb. They're not terribly good at reacting to things that don't actually exist. They're great if you show them something physically and say, what do you think of that? And particularly if that thing relates to something they already understand, a newer version of something they're very good at. But if you show them something they have never seen before, they're not desperately useful. And, Apple famously never did customer research. Neither did Sony in the early days. They felt that they had already seen the future and knew what was best for their customers. And that's kind of a little bit patronizing away, but it is actually a very, very useful thing. And I personally think your staff should be number one and your customer should be number two. And actually, if you think something's right, do it anyway, and it'll probably find a market. Build it and they will come is still more or less true. And the other thing you can do, by the way, is, build it and they will come, build it and adapt it when it's wrong. Just get it out there. I mean, easy with some things than others. That's easy with a chocolate bar. It's less useful with a nuclear power plant. But, get it out there quickly with things wrong with it and adapt it very quickly over time, which is very much a virgin approach. Get something out there and prototype it in the market. Whereas a Unilever approach, in contrast, is very much more cautious. It's we're not going to launch it until it's 100% right. And they never launch it. Or they launch it and somebody's already done something that's killed it before it's even started. So, try and work out where the balance is there. Now, these are 10 rules for revolutionaries, so there's an 11th one, because I'm innovating. Don't follow the rules. You have to understand the rules, and then you can break them. It's not just a question of I don't need to look at the rules. Yes, you do need to look at the rules, and once you get it, then you can break them. Being an optimist, I think, helps enormously. In fact, if you're a pessimist around this stuff, forget it, quite frankly. Really good thing that's happening at the moment is physical location doesn't matter as much as it once did, although it still matters. I mean, physical location does matter in a globalized virtual world. Provenance is becoming increasingly important, but where an idea comes from, where you're based in a globalized world is really, I wouldn't say it's irrelevant, but it's less important than it used to be. And I say the money's still out there. And just to sort of finish off, two more quotes. I'm on a sort of quote fest today. The first one is from H.J. Hines, as of ketchup and baked beans. Do something ordinary, extraordinarily well. I think that, if there's one tip here, and people are doing ordinary things badly in an ordinary ways the entire time. Just take something really simple, milk delivery, paper, pens, I don't know, anything, and just do it better than anyone else on the planet. And the other quote, which I try to live to as far as I can, which is from Jerry Garcia, which if you don't know him, he's a member of the Grateful Dead, a rock band. Don't be the best in the world at what you do. Be the only one in the world who does what you do. I think that's another sort of great thing to live to. And I'm going to end with a Welshman, Dylan Thomas, who, there's somebody talking about him a long time ago. And I kind of like this, and it's sort of relevant to this a little bit, and you'll see in a minute. Dylan talked copiously, then stopped. Somebody is boring me. I think it's me. Thank you very much.